Hello, we are recording. This is not going out live anywhere
Cool.
because I just want this to be a completely calm and relaxed conversation between me and my guests. And I feel that if there is a live element to it, that can be disturbing because there may be comments coming in. And so I don't want that. Today, I am joined by none other than Meredith. My tongue is playing up. Meredith Whitley. And Meredith is a meditation teacher and chocolatier with a particular interest in mindful eating. I mean, how impressive is that? She helps people live more mindfully through her well-being sessions and her chocolate range, Calm Cacao. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I don't know. Anyway, welcome so much to this interview series that I'm doing called What the Heck is Trademark and Why Should You Even Care? And here is the first question for you, Meredith. Oops, let me see if I can put it up here. So what inspired you to start Calm Cacao? I call it Calm Cacao. I hope that's okay. And how do you see it standing out in the crowded wellness and chocolate market?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Calm cocoa or calm cacao, you can use either. That is fine. I guess my inspiration ultimately started with my love of chocolate, but actually because what I'm really interested in is not just sharing the story of great chocolate, but it's also how it can really help us to get connected with ourselves, with our bodies, with the world around us. And I guess ultimately, like so many people that work in the wellbeing space, some of this is based off the issues that I had for myself. So I'm one of the very, very many people in the population who has issues with irritable bowel syndrome or IBS. And
Oh,
so I was, and it was a real challenge for me for a really long time. And mindful eating and meditation and mindfulness were really essential in helping me to get better at managing my stress, to recognize the stress, but also there was just this really lovely overlap between mindful eating and chocolate, because the way that you taste chocolate professionally is exactly the same as mindful eating, really, in terms of the process. So yeah, really two things. I mean, it's two things that I use to support my own well-being, which is chocolate and meditation.
so how do you taste chocolate professionally? Because I'm not a professional. I love chocolate. I'm not a professional chocolate taster. I have no idea, and this is not part of any of the questions. So this is just my curiosity that's sparking this question for you.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to get to judge on chocolate awards. So as well as tasting my own chocolate, yeah, I know it's great. We sit and taste 25 different chocolates in a sitting. Actually, it's more challenging than it sounds because there's a lot of tastes and flavors going on. But I mean, there's a particular skill to tasting chocolate, and the more that you taste, the more you learn to taste. But basically, it involves all the senses. So when you're tasting chocolate, and you can do this with any food, but it's much nicer with something that's really delicious and flavorsome, like chocolate or cheese or wine, things like that as well.
Haha, wine. I know how to taste wine.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
a technique. You swill the glass round, you sniff the bouquet, and then you take a tiny bit into your mouth, and then you sort of swish it around the palate. And if you are able to, then you take in air on top of the wine as
Yeah.
well. So it's really like almost a science in and of itself. Do you do the same with the chocolate?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not.
you don't swill it around in a
No,
glass
you
because
don't
we're not
spill it.
talking hot
Ah,
chocolate.
yeah, you don't spill it, but it's not dissimilar. So what you do when you're tasting chocolate, you first of all you look. So you are using your eyes. So you're looking for the colors of the chocolate, whether there's any sort of bloom on it. So that white cocoa butter stuff that you'll sometimes see. If there's any other things in it, you might want to have a look at those. You touch it because you want it to be melting on your fingertips, and again, sort of noticing that texture. You smell it, so similar to wine, because our smell is so important to our taste, as so many people discovered in COVID when they lost their sense of smell. So again, you're looking for a range of smells, which you might like or not like, depending on your taste. And then the actual, I guess, once you get to putting it in your mouth, um, a little different to wine, but not dissimilar in that rather than just chewing it, which you can chew chocolate when you eat it and it gives you a slightly different taste, but you take a small piece and you put it on your tongue, you move it around your mouth so that it starts to melt. And the melting starts to release all those flavors and aromas. And you've actually got another type of smell, which is your retronasal smell. So this is your orthonasal smell through your nose. Your retronasal smell is that when you breathe out, any aromas are pushed up the back of your throat, again to your olfactory bulb. And so you're looking for all of those smells, which we call flavor, and then what you taste on your tongue, which could be sweet, salty, bitter, sour, those sorts of things, but also how it feels in your mouth. So mouth feels. So there's a lot, even just going on in your mouth with a tiny piece of chocolate. And you're really looking for, I guess, the journey of the chocolate in your mouth. You don't just want a single note and flavor. So you really only get that through slowing down. So I'll be honest, I mostly taste chocolate. I do eat chocolate sometimes as well. So I will sit and chew chocolate. And actually, that's quite interesting to sort of taste versus eating and chomping. But I think the whole thing is about slowing down, using your different senses, and then actually noticing whether you like it or not, because everybody's palate is very, very different. And even tasting chocolates at different times of the day, depending on your mood, what you've eaten, that can change all the tastes and flavors as well. So it's this thing we do every day without thinking, just eating and drinking, but it's such a complex sensory experience. It's really fascinating when you start breaking it down and kind of tuning into all the different parts of it.
Have you heard that there are some people that actually have more taste buds on their tongue than other people?
Yeah, they're called super tasters. It's actually quite a big chunk of the population, relatively speaking. And for some people, some people that's great because you can taste a lot. But sometimes people find it really challenging because they can taste so much, it actually makes some foods quite unpleasant to them. Whereas if you've got less of that taste, it's not quite so intense in your mouth. And then you also have a group of people who've got much, much less taste buds. And so actually they tend to be a bit less excited by food because they're not tasting so much in it. So yeah, it's very different. Different people, different palates, different ways of tasting, different things we enjoy, a lot of cultural things that affect all of it. So yeah, I'm fascinated by taste. I think it's just such an interesting area of science in our body, and I love the overlap with chocolate as well, because chocolate is essentially one of the most complex foods that you can taste. There's up to 600 different types of taste across all the different types of chocolate. So
600.
Yeah, so there's even more than in wine. So it's an incredible ingredient. Really, really exciting.
Well, there are people who also use it in savory dishes. We know this from the Mexican kitchen, don't we? So, and it does give sort of a completely different depth to the savory dishes, I feel.
Absolutely. Pretty much most foods you could find a chocolate to pair. The only thing I draw the line at really is probably raw onion and raw garlic. I think that's where you get challenged. Cooked onion, yeah, and I throw things like cocoa nibs, so the roasted bits of cocoa
nibs are good.
underneath chocolate. I'll put those through curry. I will sometimes do a dish with mushrooms and onion and cocoa nibs through it with a little bit of soy sauce. So yeah, sweet and savory. I basically try and have chocolate and cacao and cocoa in everything that I eat. So very, very versatile ingredients. Great.
Yeah. All right. So next question, official question. With your journey from corporate life to mindful chocolatier, what steps have you taken to protect your brand identity so far?
Yeah, it's a very windy route, as I guess for most people that end up doing something slightly unusual. I was really lucky. I had the opportunity to take redundancy from a job that I was kind of starting to go down part-time to anyway. So it was really fortunate timing. I've been through many rounds of redundancies in other companies before and never been ready to leave. But I've spent over 17 years working in various big businesses, from the music industry to big market research companies. I worked in the public sector for a bit. And my last job was working for eBay, so big marketplace organization. I really, really enjoyed working there as well, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to work for myself and probably with food, but I didn't know exactly what that was. And actually, when I first left my job, I started working on a little business idea, and within 3 months I realized it wasn't actually quite right. So I started picking up different freelance bits of work, and including becoming a chocolate tour guide for someone who's a very good friend of mine now. So we would take people on walking tours through London and take them to amazing chocolate shops and taste chocolate, which was amazing.
What's not to like about that?
It was great. I did children's cookery classes. I did some freelance writing, and I started running my own classes as well. And I'd already been, when I was working in my office job previously, I'd done lots of chocolate classes and chocolate tastings, but I wasn't a professional chef, and I wasn't a pastry chef, which a lot of people who've come into chocolate have tended to have a professional food background. So I think for me to start with, I was quite nervous because, I'm not professionally trained, but met some amazing people, did loads and loads of classes, built my skills up over time. And I was doing little bits of mindful eating at the end of the classes that I was running, which was very much about, as I look back now, very, very sensorily connected, and kind of about creativity and exploring food and flavor and taste. And I thought, well, actually, because I'm doing little bits of meditation, I probably should train as a meditation teacher properly to make sure that I can look after people. And I just loved training. And it felt like this really natural overlap between what I'd been doing with chocolate, the things that I was learning about with meditation, my own experience for using meditation for quite a few years at that point to sort of help me with my stress. So it was really, 2.5, 3 years of doing various other things when it all kind of came together. And I even had an initial chocolate range, which is a little bit different to what I'm doing now, but some of those things have come back into what I'm doing with Calm Cocoa. And I guess I really wanted to focus specifically on hot chocolate because that was a real nod to the origins of chocolate, which was mostly consumed as a drink. So for most of its history,
I know that.
Yeah, so and lots of sacred connections with it, as well as, just a sort of a food stuff. It wasn't always just used in rituals. But, there was a lot of connections with that. And I wanted to, I guess, also have a hot chocolate that used really, really good chocolate in it because I'm very, very passionate about great chocolate and ethical chocolate.
Yes.
So it kind of took lots of experiments, a few sort of going forward, going back. And I think in terms of the actual brand identity, that sort of almost came out through that journey as well. And I think the main thing for me was in the first place checking that no one else even had that, because I had some other ideas for names and I sort of did name searches and checked trademarking to make sure that no one else had what I was after. And I had some initial names that I checked and they had been trademarked in other countries. And that was sort of how I ended up with my own brand name in the end, which I'm much happier with than some of the ones I was originally considering.
Okay. That's all very valid and very good sort of considerations that you've brought to the table. Okay, so the next question is, how do you think having a registered trademark could enhance the visibility and trustworthiness of Calm Cacao in the eyes of your customers?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I haven't actually registered it, even though it's sort of in my mind to do that. I mean, it's got my name in it, which has helped. So the full name is Calm Cocoa by Meredith Whitley. So it does have my name in it, which is helpful. But I think it is something that people are looking for. And it's certainly something that I do plan to do long term as well. And I think when people see an actual trademark, it can lend a bit of credence to what you're doing as well. I think especially as I grow, because really at the moment it's mostly just me with a bit of my husband and then some friends and family that I've roped in to help me when I'm doing events and things like that. But at the moment I'm predominantly what I would call a solopreneur business.
And if I may be so bold, you said a little bit of credence. I want to say a lot of credence, because once people see the registration, you won't see that on this old banner because it's an old one and I got it created before I registered my trademark. Yeah. However, when people see the registration symbol, it shows them that you take yourself and your business very, very seriously, and that you know that what you create has actual real value in this world. So you are on the right path, I want to say, and with your own considerations as to what a trademark would do, for your customers. And there's also the thing that, of big brands such as Apple and Nike, that people, I don't know if people still do this with Apple. However, back in the day, they would sleep on the pavements outside the shops before a new release, back in the days of Steve Jobs. So what a trademark actually does for you is that it creates loyalty in your client base, and that it can actually turn out to be invaluable. And once you've got to a certain stage, you can actually then have your trademark evaluated professionally by people who know and understand how to do that. And they then can help you so that you can write it into your bookkeeping and so that it becomes a real asset to your business.
And I think also, it would definitely give me that personally, not even thinking from the customer perspective, that extra bit of confidence that it is mine, and I can kind of have the guardianship of that as well.
Yeah, which is important. Okay, so here comes the next question for you. What challenges do you anticipate in protecting your brand as you grow, and how do you plan to address them?
Well, yeah, one of them I think I've probably already answered. Definitely the trademark. Yeah, I think that is that challenge as you go, because I said I'm still quite small at the moment, and I'm not planning world domination, just in case you're wondering. But yes,
why not? Why not? Why not is what I'm asking.
Well, I quite like the positioning as a small batch maker, and I quite like the artisan side of those that I guess in the production.
Nothing wrong with artisan at all, by the way.
Yeah, but yes, I would definitely like to grow more, and I think it will be really important. I think before I get to that stage of making sure that I'm fully protected. So again, I've just got that confidence, because I also know what happens. I don't know whether you find the same thing. I have these plans to do things, and then you get busy and it falls down the bottom of the list. And so if you've already got down 10 steps, you've done all the growth, and you've got to that point, and you think, oh, what was that thing I was supposed to have done about 6 months ago? And so that's why I think actually doing it at this point will be really, really valuable, rather than waiting too long.
Yeah, and also you risk, if you wait too long, that somebody swoops in from the sidelines and does the actual registration, which you don't want. And if I may be so bold as to give you a little bit of advice here, using your personal name in business and in a trademark can actually be a little bit dangerous. May I share a story with you of somebody who did this? Yeah.
Yes,
so this is a completely different type of business. This was a clothes designer. I am connected to her on LinkedIn. I have full permission to share her story, her full name and everything. So originally she was trading under her birth name, which was Benedicte Utzon. She's quite well known in Denmark, and she had then taken on an investor, and for some reason the business went bust. And in that process, she was asked if she wanted to buy back the label, because she used her name Benedicte Utzon as her label.
Right.
And so she was asked, do you want to buy your label back? And hitherto in Danish case law, you had always been allowed to use your own name. And so she didn't think that she needed to. So she said, no, thank you. And then somebody else came along and bought it. And she continued to sell clothing under her own name via her social media channels. And suddenly it turns out that she was inadvertently infringing upon that third party's intellectual property. So yes, the High Court of Copenhagen then came with a sentence that she was not allowed to use her name Benedicte anymore. So she had to sell clothing. She also designed it, of course. And so she had to find a completely different name for herself. And she was devastated. Of course she was. And so she chose the name Liv, which in Danish means life. So it's Liv, and it means life, because she's not dead. And so that is why I always say to people, be really, really careful when you use your own name for your business, because it can have devastating consequences. And I think something similar happened to Karen Millen over here, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a
So,
really good reminder, isn't it? Because I think sometimes it's easy to forget because it's my name. Surely I own my name, but obviously not if you haven't trademarked it for business.
and even if you do, and something happens and the business goes bust, something that you haven't foreseen, then it can still end badly, as it did for Benedicta, and she is devastated. Was not, she isn't anymore. She's loving her new business, and I think it's called My Little Curvy Love, or My Curvy Little. Can never remember. I think it's My Little Curvy Love that it's called now. And however, when she does stuff, it's Liv Utzon. It's not Benedicta Utzon. At home, she's allowed to call herself Benedicta because it's her birth name.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit frustrating, that you can't use your own birth name. Like, that's...
Yeah, no, and it's just, I think all these things are good reminders, because I think it's very easy, as I said, to almost let these things fall to the bottom of the pile because they're not quite as sexy as when you get to spend time eating chocolate.
I know.
But really essential.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, can you share any experiences where having a trademark might have helped you navigate competition or market your products more effectively?
Yeah, I think it probably comes back again a little bit to that consumer confidence. So yeah, I'm not sure about navigating competition, maybe just more from the perspective of standing out and that confidence. So I think really from the kind of consumer perspective, that's when it really helps the most.
Yeah, because when they see that registered trademark, they think, this is somebody who takes themselves seriously, and I can put my faith into that. I mean, I think, I can't remember. I think I shared with you about a really interesting Danish chocolatier, and
Yes.
he found that wild cacao bean in Brazil or wherever it was. Did you manage to take a look at that?
Yes, I did. It looked absolutely amazing. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing, again, especially because so many of the people who work in chocolate, who are not the big guys, they're really small businesses. And it can be really devastating if you put all the work into developing something and then it does, as you say, gets whisked away from under your feet because it hasn't got protection. It can be really, really devastating when you put your heart and soul, and so many people that work, especially on the kind of smaller scale side of chocolate, they do it because it's a real passion and a real love. And it's really challenging to make great chocolate. I don't make chocolate from the beans. I work with chocolate makers that do that, and then I turn it into other products. And even I know what goes into making my products, but to actually do that kind of process of making the chocolate from the bean, it's a real skill and it's a real passion. And yeah, you kind of want to make sure that you look
And imagine being able to find those wild bushes. Like, wow. I was like, wow. And I've tasted that chocolate, and it's actually really high quality, and I really, really like it. And I'm not affiliated or anything, so I don't get paid to say that. It's just really, really high quality.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is the final question that I have for you here, Meredith. If you were to secure a trademark for Calm Cacao, what aspects of your brand would you prioritize, and why?
Very good question. I mean, I guess the look and feel of it is one thing, but it's more really what I'm covering, because one of the things that I was doing when I was originally doing the research for my brand names, and there was someone that had a similar-ish name, and I looked at the categories that they were trademarked for, and fortunately they didn't cover some of the things that I was doing. So I think actually making sure that I'm covering both what I'm producing now and what I would like to in the future, so that again I'm kind of protected, not just for what I'm doing at the moment, but what could happen with the brand. Because I think sometimes it's really it can be really easy to just think, well, this is what I'm doing at the moment, and not thinking, well, this is where I want to be. So I think it's thinking about, what am I doing now? Am I covered for this? But actually, where do I want to be in 5 years' time? And am I covered for that? Am I giving myself space to grow? And even if you don't really end up being in that space in 5 years' time, at least you know you could do. So I think that would probably be the big things for me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, because it's like we have to put on lenses that allows us to look into the future. What is the vision that I have for my brand? Where is it that I want to project myself and my business to in future? And then have the confidence to do that, really.
Yeah. And, again, that can be challenging as a small business, because so often you're just thinking day to day to day, kind of the next week's orders or the next month's workshops. And so it's very easy. And I say this is someone who I quite like planning as well, but I'm quite often thinking just for the next few weeks ahead. So I think it's making sure that there's some time in your year, whether it's a dedicated time every year or some spots through the year, to just check in and be thinking, well, where do I want to be long term? Where would I love to see this go to? And I think giving yourself that space and freedom to dream a little bit as well. And I guess that's one of the things, even looking at, well, what categories do I want to cover within the trademark? That's actually like, well, yeah, I do want to go there. I'm not so interested in that. So I think it's really helpful to just generally check in whether I feel I'm on the right path, but also where my heart's pulling me for the future too.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so before we end completely, do you have any links that I can share so that people watching this can go and interact with you, like your LinkedIn, your website, YouTube channels? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I don't have a YouTube channel, which is weird because I love talking.
Maybe there's an idea.
You can find me at calmcoco.co.uk.
Will you write it into the chat so that I can put it up as a banner?
I absolutely can.
So that people who might not know how to spell it can find it anyway.
There we go.
Because I
don't know whether that's come up into the...
It has come into it. Yeah, it certainly has. And, I am somebody who experiences life with dyslexia. So for me, it's important to see stuff written so that I don't have to guess at things and how to spell it. So, yeah. What about your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, so you can find me at Meredith Whitely. And in fact, I'll spell
my name again, please.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And I've also got a business page as well. So you can find Calm Coco on LinkedIn, and Instagram is the other place I tend to hang out.
So do you not have a link to your LinkedIn profile?
I do indeed. Let me just...
Because that might be easier.
Yes, that probably is much easier. That way you can...
So that people can... Yeah, they can... They might not click on, because it's on YouTube. At least they can see what they need to type in so that they can...
There we go.
Yeah,
so that is where you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find my Calm Coco page on there as well, which I have linked to from my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, because we do that, don't we?
Yeah, and same thing on Instagram. It's Calm Coco, same kind of spelling. So you can find me there, or either under Meredith _food at heart. But if you just put my name in, you can find me on Instagram as well. So I tend to kind of be hanging out.
Put that into the chat so that I can put it up here as well, so we have everything.
No problem. I'll put my Instagram.
It's easier for people, I think, because they don't have to guess at it. And
so too. And also helpfully, I mean, the other place you can find me, so Calm Coco is actually where all my, it's kind of like my shop front for my chocolate products. And I'm also going to give you, this is my other website, Food at Heart. That's where you can find all my meditation stuff. So that's where I tend to share events that I've got coming up. So I just ran a lovely event with a local yoga teacher, because I live in Mid Wales now. And we did a beautiful solstice yoga and hot chocolate meditation session on Saturday morning. So I do events and pop up in places as well.
And I'm also copying these so that I have them to put into the show notes. So that they might not, be able to do it straight, copy it from the screen, but then at least they can go to the show notes and get the details there. So that's the Calm Cacao one. And then the last one is the food At heart, I think,
Yeah.
is the
And
one.
that's how I started. Food at Heart was my when I first started working for myself. It was all about my love of food and the body, and it's kind of it's morphed into different things, but it's still at its core what I started out doing. So it's nice to know that, it's still getting me in my heart. Maybe it should be chocolate at heart.
Yeah, maybe it should. So, anyway, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here today, and we have spoken for half an hour. That is amazing. So, thank you so much for agreeing to this, Meredith. It was, as I say, an absolute pleasure.
Lovely. It was really lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for having me.